I'm back in Camden after 2 weeks without flights due to bad weather. Davido will be helping me to get in shape again. Aim to practice circuits and determine if I'm ready for my first solo flight. This has been the longest break between flights and I feel a bit rusty. Have I regressed? Can I continue where I left off 2 weeks ago? Let's find out. In previous lessons, Greg showed me how to lean the mix before taxiing. Today I tried to imitate Greg's process, but I didn't do it at the right time because I didn't understand why this was needed. So I did a bit of research. Rich mix at low RPMs, like during taxiing, can lead to fouling of spark plugs, which deteriorates engine performance and may cause difficulties in engine operations. Leaning prevents the buildup of unburned fuel in the engine, maintaining cleaner combustion and prolonging engine life. A rich mixture consumes more fuel. Leaning the mixture during ground operations where full power is not required conserves fuel. This is especially important in scenarios with extended ground operations or waiting times. There are also environmental considerations. Leaning the mixture reduces the amount of unburned hydrocarbons and carbon monoxide emitted, making the operation slightly more environmentally friendly. To lean the fuel mix before taxi, slowly turn the mix knob so that it gradually comes out instead of pulling it out. While leaning, monitor the engine RPM and temperature gauges. A slight increase in RPMs can indicate an optimal mixture setting for taxi. When you notice that RPMs begin dropping, you know that you've reached the optimal lean settings. The Civil Aviation Safety Authority, CASA, in Australia mandates that student pilots demonstrate satisfactory English language proficiency before undertaking the first solo flight. This requirement ensures that pilots can effectively communicate in English, which is the international language of aviation. This test assesses the student's ability to understand and communicate effectively in English, particularly in aviation-related scenarios. The test consists of these components: listening comprehension, understanding spoken English in various accents, particularly in the context of aviation communications; speaking ability, proficiency in speaking English clearly and accurately, especially using aviation terminology; reading comprehension, ability to read and comprehend English text, including aviation manuals, instructions and notices; writing skills, competence in writing English relevant to aviation contexts like filling out flight plans or logs. The test must be administered by a CASA-approved examiner or an authorized English language assessor, and on passing the test, the student receives an English language proficiency endorsement. Steve, who is a qualified instructor at AltaCup, administered the test after today's flight. The entire test was audio recorded, with the recording stored as evidence in case CASA wants to do an audit. Steve had a conversation with me about aviation, asked me to read a couple of paragraphs from an aviation book, and got me to listen to a few exchanges between a pilot and a ATC. These exchanges were typical of such communications, and my task was to understand them, take notes, and answer relevant questions. All up, this test lasted for around 45 minutes, and in the end I had an English language proficiency certificate that would never expire. This was the last exam I had to pass before getting my solo flight endorsement. Unlike the last couple of weeks, the weather today was excellent. Here's the ATIS report.
Camden to Operation Alpha, runway 06, wind variable 3 knots, occasional tailwind 3 knots, Cav OK, temperature 16, QNH 1023. On first contact, Camden Tower all ground, notify receipt of Alpha.
I'll discuss what happened on the ground instead of what happened after takeoff. You can see David's notes here in the image. I did a lot of strange things, such as spending several minutes leaning the mix before taxi, only to undo all this work in an instant by pushing the mixture knob into full reach. Why? After 2 weeks without a flight, I could remember Greg doing something like this, but I couldn't remember why. I started leaning the mix as soon as the engine started. When I look at the video, I actually laugh at myself for doing this pointless activity. Even though I had not flown for a couple of weeks, I should have realized the futility of doing this. Unfortunately, there's more. The most important failure was when Camden Ground issued a notice to all stations, which means all aircraft in the control area, with a new weather ATIS report.
All stations, Mission Bravo.
Going to do a full stop
Up to 8 knots.
right here.
Generally from the northwest through to the northeast.
All clear.
Crosswinds maximum 8, still occasional
Going
tailwind
into
3.
taxiway Charlie.
Just like in the air, I should have been listening to the radio on the ground. I think I missed this transmission because it was addressed to all stations instead of Julia Bravo Charlie, which I'm used to listening to and responding to. Still, this was weather information that was significant and I should have picked it. But wait, there's more. Here's a list of other things that I didn't do right. After listening to the ATIS, I turned off the avionics and electricals master switch, not realizing that I would need to call ATC to request clearance at start. Turning electricals on and off is a waste of battery power and stresses out the equipment, so it should have been avoided. Again, I have to think ahead of the plane, even when I'm on the ground. I didn't call out clear prop before starting the engine. I didn't check to confirm that oil pressure was in the green within 30 seconds of starting the engine as required by the checklist. My safety briefing was not standard. This is not something I have practiced, and usually I put something together on the fly. David said he would give me a sample to work with. You can see the sample in hour 20. In the runner bay, I didn't calibrate that directional indicator. At the holding point, I called ready for takeoff instead of the correct ready for circuits.
Camden Tower, Julia Bravo Charlie at holding point Alpha, ready for takeoff with information Bravo.
Julia Bravo Charlie Tower, hold position.
Holding position, Julia Bravo Charlie.
There's a lot to improve on the ground. This should be easy to deal with a bit of more care during the checklists. There were a few issues to mention in the air. Specifically, controlling altitude downwind is still not good enough. I must improve lookouts and always do them before turning. My final tends to be high. Sometimes I let the airspeed drop too low on the final even before 70 knots. I'm confident that I'll solve these issues in the next 2 to 3 flights. Unfortunately, the wind picked up quickly, with crosswind becoming 12 knots, and with that, today's flight was over. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel right now. Just click on the subscribe button below this video. And of course, you can also head over to my detailed flight training log pages on the Tech Explorations website. In these pages, I document in detail all of my experiences and learnings from each one of my training flights. These logs contain a goldmine of information for any aviation student or anyone interested in aviation. Until next time, I wish you clear skies and safe landings.